I've wanted kids, but it's your fault I've had to hold back. You're defective." My husband of 20 years threw these cruel words at me. I realized I couldn't carry on with him. He's off daydreaming about his new marriage. God must have been watching, witnessing this devilish act. That's why something happened to my husband. My name is Lisa. I'm 45 years old. I work as a secretary at a law firm. We're nearing 20 years of marriage. We've led a modest life, just the two of us. We've always wanted children, but we couldn't have any. The problem seemed to be mostly with me. I went for treatments while working, exhausting myself physically, emotionally, and financially, but to no avail. We decided to give up when I turned 40. My husband wanted kids till the end and urged me to continue treatments, but I was at my limit. The pain was unbearable, and the money was just draining away. The situation was terrifying. After all, they say you need $200,000 for retirement. It felt wasteful to pour more money into it. Why don't we stop the treatments and just live as a couple? We can save money and take some luxurious trips since we don't have kids, I suggested, and my husband, albeit reluctantly, agreed. From then on, we decided to enjoy our lives as a couple. Still, seeing children's photos on TV shows or greeting cards, I felt a twinge of regret. Even now, 5 years after stopping treatments, I carry guilt and remorse for not being able to have children. Then, one day, I decided to attend a school reunion after about 10 years. My husband said I should take a break, so I decided to stay overnight near the venue. It felt like a mini vacation. I realized I'd hardly ever been out alone since we got married. My life had been consumed by infertility treatments. A little luxury now and then is okay, right? At the venue, I enjoyed catching up with old friends. "Lisa, long time no see. How are you? Don't you seem a bit slimmer than before?" Indeed, I had lost about 22 pounds over the last decade. "I'm so jealous. Since I got married and had kids, I've gained almost 33 pounds. Even such a trivial conversation from a friend stings a bit. "Lisa, any kids?" "No, we couldn't. It's just the two of us with my husband." "Oh, I'm sorry for asking such an awkward question." "No worries. Let's just have fun." I tried to keep the atmosphere lively and cheerful. Speaking of which, my son was recently almost caught up in a marriage scam. A scam? I was taken aback by my classmates' words. Yes, he was asked to lend $20,000 because they were getting married, but it didn't go through. What? What happened then? My son couldn't afford to pay that much money, so he came to us, his parents, for advice. That's how we discovered the scam. In the end, the woman disappeared. That's a terrifying story. There are some pretty awful women out there, really scary. A marriage scam. I was a bit shocked that something like that could happen so close to home. Her son now has a new girlfriend, and the parents seemed relieved. The reunion went on smoothly and eventually came to an end. Instead of going to the after party, I returned to my hotel and enjoyed a nightcap by myself. Come to think of it, I forgot to check in with my husband. It was only 10 p.m., he should still be up. I tried to call home, but no matter how many times I let it ring, my husband didn't answer. Maybe he had already gone to sleep. Well, I was going back tomorrow anyway, so it wasn't a problem. Still, I had an uneasy feeling. Was it a woman's intuition? I had a bad feeling for some reason. From then on, my husband started coming home extremely late on weekdays, and he started coming home drunk almost every night. "Hey, I'm home." "You, coming home so drunk. Are you okay?" In a drunken stupor, my husband threw his shoes off and sprawled out on the living room floor. "Shut up, I'm home. Show some respect." Respect for what, exactly? His slovenly state? While picking up my husband's discarded socks and shirt, I kept my thoughts to myself. Alyssa was cute, wasn't she? You know, if you were as young as Alyssa. That's what my husband said. Who the hell is Alyssa? What does he mean if I were young? By the time I thought to question him, he was already fast asleep. Could he be cheating on me? My unease from that day was becoming more and more like conviction. No, my husband is a decent man. There's no way he could. It must be drunken nonsense, I reassured myself. But then there's my husband who leaves early in the morning on weekends and doesn't return until late at night. I'll be back later. Take care. And then he comes home drunk, as always. With this happening every week, even I had to intervene. You seem to be going out drinking almost every day recently. Are we okay financially? Mind your own business. It's my money and I'll do what I want with it. It's the savings from my bachelor days. But we need to save up for our old age or we'll be in trouble in the future. Why don't you save up then? Well, I've spent quite a bit on treatments. That's because you're defective. Even if he was drunk, I couldn't believe he'd speak to me that way. I was starting to notice my husband's changes. Did I become more submissive since I stopped treatment? My husband's disparaging remarks about me were increasing. Since you can't have kids, you should show your affection for me instead. And with that, I could feel my love for him diminishing as he splurged and behaved selfishly. He used to be so kind, caring for me when I was having a hard time with treatments. Will he ever return to being that kind of husband? What is a marriage, really? After 20 years, I started to question this. However, things took a sudden turn. Lisa, we need to talk. I came home from work to find my husband sitting on the living room sofa, looking serious. What is it? You're being all formal. I want a divorce. What? You're joking, right? Why would you say that all of a sudden? The thought that my husband was considering a divorce had never crossed my mind. Yes, I knew we had to reconsider our relationship as a married couple, but I hadn't thought about divorce. Was my husband thinking of divorce before I even considered it? Out of the blue, you want a divorce? What's going on? I confronted my husband, seeking answers. We've been a couple for 20 years, haven't we? Let's discuss this properly. However, he looked at me with contempt. You're really clueless, aren't you? He sighed heavily, glaring at me. What do you mean? I've always wanted children for these past 20 years. And because I got stuck with a defective piece like you, I've been robbed of the opportunity to become a father. Have you ever considered my feelings? As he spoke, he pounded the table with an arrogant tone. That's not fair. We discussed together and decided to stop the treatments, remember? I was never okay with that. I've always wanted a child. Why hadn't he told me that then? I was on the verge of tears, overwhelmed by sadness and frustration. Well, if you sign the divorce papers, I won't have anything else to say. Proudly, he pushed the divorce papers on the table towards me. I've actually already decided to remarry. What? Remarry? Yeah, with a 20-year-old girl. A girl? Are you saying you've been having an affair? No way. I plan on marrying her as soon as we're divorced. He announced this with a smug satisfaction. A 20-year-old girl was marrying my husband? This couldn't be happening. Alyssa, she's sweet and cute. The perfect wife. Not like you. Alyssa. That was the name my husband had mentioned that day. Woman's intuition was not to be underestimated. I felt a sense of self-satisfaction, but this wasn't the time for self-praise. And then my husband showed me a picture of his adorable Alyssa. Upon taking a closer look, I nearly burst out laughing. This has to be a joke. Something like this was impossible. What? He noticed my strange reaction, but I quickly regained my composure. I felt it was too soon to let him in on the joke, so I immediately composed myself. So you really want a child that badly? Yes, because you can't give birth. There's nothing we can do about that, right? You will agree to divorce, won't you? Well, I suppose there's no choice. I pretend to look more upset than I really am. Sure, I was upset when he first brought up the divorce, but now, with his sheer stupidity, I feel like it would be right to divorce him immediately. Yes, I should leave a man like this sooner or later. I feel as if I've been given divine guidance to do so. I sign the divorce papers and leave my husband behind. I'll bet he'll regret this soon enough. Well, let's just watch and see. Fast forward a year after the divorce. Lisa, please help me. A shabby-looking man approaches me on my way home from work. Excuse me, who are you? I genuinely don't recognize him. It's me, Lisa. I need your help. It's my ex-husband. Long time no see. I'm taken aback by how much he's changed. His cheeks are sunken, and he's dressed shabbily. Please, Alice, introduce me to your company's lawyer. I can't just do that out of the blue. Apparently, my ex-husband is having money troubles. I could sort of tell from his appearance, but I never thought he would become a completely different person within a year. If it's your first time, consultation is free. Free? But if you want to hire them, you'll have to pay their fee. I don't have that kind of money. Please, help me. What on earth happened? I decided to listen to his story at a nearby cafe out of pity. Well, actually, before he could say another word, I cut him off. Did that girl, Alyssa, run off? How did you know? Just as I thought. When my ex-husband showed me a picture of a girl named Alyssa, it clicked. That girl looked exactly like the one who conned a classmate's son at a reunion. At that reunion, the classmate was saying, "I can't forgive that woman," and showed her picture around, warning everyone. I think her name was Sally and she was about 22. Well, her age and name are probably fake. It makes sense. The swindler wouldn't use her real name, of course. You knew about Alyssa, didn't you? Well, I guess you could say I knew, but what happened? When I asked my husband for the details, this was the story he gave. He met a woman named Alyssa about a year ago in a nightclub. My husband, who has always wanted children, seemed to have been venting such thoughts in his conversations with her. That's when Alyssa said, "I can have a child for you." The two gradually deepened their relationship after that. My husband would go to the club almost every weekday and would date Alyssa outside the club on weekends, then return to the club. In doing so, he ended up using $10,000 from his savings that he had accumulated when he was single. But Alyssa was so sweet. She never asked for expensive things even when we were outside the club. She was just happy drinking with me at the club. She was different from the stereotypical opportunistic club girls you often hear about. She didn't need designer goods or jewelry. She was satisfied if I was there drinking with her at the club. She was hardworking and sincere. We had agreed not to touch each other's savings from when we were single, so I never noticed anything. I thought it was his money and he could use it as he pleased. I had no idea he was spending that much. And then Alyssa showed her true colors. "I want to get married, but I have debts, so I need to repay them, and it's about $20,000. Then my husband promised to take on Alyssa's debt and transferred the money to her. They moved in together right after our divorce, but Alyssa continued her night work and rarely came home. And then she quit her job at the club and disappeared. Of course, she took all the money and ran. Just how foolish can he be? I started to feel pathetic for having been married to such a man for 20 years. Did you make a promissory note? A what? When I asked, my husband looked puzzled. You lent her money, didn't you? Didn't you get a note? We were going to be a couple, so I didn't do such a thing. Really? So doesn't it mean you just gave her the money? Is that so? In this case, it seems like you donated $20,000 to Alyssa out of goodwill. This woman must be a pro. In the case of donations, if the amount exceeds $11,000 in a year, gift tax is imposed. Depending on the case, the receiver might be taxed, so Alyssa just took $20,000 in cash and vanished. And she split the money into 2 parts across 2 different years. That way, she wouldn't exceed the $11,000 limit and could avoid taxes. The reason my husband thought she was a good girl who never asked for material gifts was because she knew the law well. So what should I do? I don't know, maybe consult a lawyer? It'll cost you, though. Upon hearing that, my husband's shoulders slumped. I've used up all my savings from my single days. The woman I loved ran away from me. I can't tell the company that the marriage is off after I've already told them about remarrying. I boasted about getting a younger wife. Isn't that his own doing? Although I thought that, seeing his pitiful situation, I couldn't say anything. Lisa, it's my fault. Please, come back to me. I realized after you were gone, you were the only one who cared about me. I don't need kids anymore. I'll let you do as you like. You must have been lonely too, right? Does my husband still misunderstand that I still love him? That matter ended half a year ago in my mind, so I confronted him with reality. You know, it's been a year. What's with this sudden change of heart? Isn't it a little too late now? Lisa, are you going to abandon me? Well, it was you who pushed for our divorce in the first place, remember? Lisa, you're the only one I can rely on. My ex-husband looked utterly exhausted. I decided to show him a little mercy. All right then, shall I call up a lawyer friend of mine? Lisa, thank you. I knew I could count on you. With tears welling up in his eyes, my ex-husband seemed genuinely grateful. And the one who came to the coffee shop was Mr. Johnson, the lawyer from my company. John, over here. Lisa, who's this? He's an acquaintance. Seems he's in a bit of a bind. Is that so? Nice to meet you. The name's Johnson. My ex-husband seemed somewhat perplexed by our overly familiar demeanor. You see, we've been dating for the past 6 months. Now what was it you needed advice on? As I finished speaking, my ex-husband looked as if he was in a daze. No, well, I think that'll be it for today. Suddenly snapping back to reality, my ex-husband hurriedly left the coffee shop. In the end, he couldn't afford to hire a lawyer, and resigned himself to his fate. Rumor has it that his company has been abuzz with talk of his unfortunate situation, left by his soon-to-be wife, ignored by his ex-wife. It's a small world. Who would have thought that one of his colleagues was at the same coffee shop, overhearing the entire conversation from start to finish? I heard through the grapevine that he's frantically trying to find a new partner, terrified of facing old age alone. Who was that guy? When Mr. Johnson asked me about it later, I told him the whole story. I'm sorry for involving you in all this. The truth is... I see. You've had quite the ordeal, Lisa. The part about me dating Mr. Johnson was a complete lie. I had asked him to play along with the charade. Sorry for all the trouble. No worries, Lisa. I'm glad I could be of help. By the way, do you have any plans after this? Excuse me? How about grabbing something to eat if you'd like? Caught off guard by this unexpected turn of events, I was a little flustered. A fresh start in my mid-40s. This isn't such a bad beginning. Yes, I'd love to. I was certain a fun-filled future was awaiting me. I couldn't shake off this feeling.